Today's scripture passages are in violent contradiction, and there doesn't seem to be a simple resolution. On its face, a contradiction occurs whenever two declarative statements cannot be true at the same time or at any time. So we're in a tough bind today with those two passages that I just read from Luke 10:27 and Luke 14:26. 2 plus 2 equals 4. And there's nothing you can do about it, right? 2 plus 2 equals 4. You cannot say 2 plus 2 equals 5. You can say it, but you'd be absolutely wrong. 2 plus 2 equals 4. There's nothing you can do about that. All bachelors are unmarried. And there's nothing you can do about that. If you say some bachelors, right, are married, you'd be wrong. That's untrue. These statements are necessarily true. 2 plus 2 equals 4. All bachelors are unmarried. And when I say that I'm happy that the Eagles won the Super Bowl, but I'm also sad, that's a contradiction too, but I can offer you a simple explanation. I'm happy that they won, but I'm sad that it's over. Even the parade is over. But listen closely. Jesus affirms the statement of the lawyer in Luke 10:27. You shall love the Lord your God and your neighbor as yourself. And then 4 chapters later, he deploys the word hate, saying, whoever comes to me and does not hate. He doesn't say, whoever comes to me and does not love a little bit less. He says hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and yes, hate even life itself cannot be my disciple. That is a true conundrum, a contradiction. And I am, and I hope you are, flabbergasted. Will you please, dearest Jesus, help me? Will you please make up your mind? Are you encouraging us to love or to hate? And while you're at it, would you make up my mind on what I'm supposed to think or feel or do? See, the Bible makes me think, and it makes me feel. And sometimes I don't know whether to think or to feel. I don't know what to think and what to feel. And it's frustrating. Last week, as some of you may have heard and seen, Elon Musk, the notorious CEO of the Tesla Corporation, shot a rather large object into orbit. And then he landed 2 of the 3 reusable rocket boosters back down on the Cape Canaveral landing pads. I don't know if you've seen that, but it was a marvelous sight. Now, I have no idea and no interest really in how they successfully shot this thing. They called it Falcon Heavy up into space. I have no idea how. I'm sure they could explain it to me if I had a PhD in astrophysics. But I do love the fact that human beings are capable of and competent enough to do such things. I love it. And part of the reason I can love it is because I don't have to think about the complex details. As a sublime feeling, love is sometimes like that. I can love somebody without fully understanding them. When it comes to the love we have for God, it would seem that love is an act of the will that I mentioned last week. And it's not merely a feeling, which would explain why God commands us to do it. And in Luke 10, he tethers that commandment with love of one's neighbor. Something else happened last week. Mike Hughes, one of those neighbors. And interestingly enough, Mike Hughes commissioned a rocket on his own. He was scheduled to launch it out of the Mojave Desert last Saturday, but something went wrong apparently with the O-rings. This guy created a rocket that was meant to fly up into space all on his own. He got all kinds of money, but he had to postpone the launch for the third time. Mike Hughes is a card-carrying member of the modern-day Flat Earth Society. He believes, literally, in a flat Earth. He believes that the world has edges to it. And lots of other people evidently believe it too, because he raised about $2 million to build this rocket. Hughes apparently has wanted to prove that his model for the world is correct, and he's raised all this money to prove something that seems asinine. But the rocket that he was wanting to send up into space in order to prove his theory apparently is not cooperating. Again, bad O-rings. And Mike Hughes is one of those neighbors. It's hard for me to believe that I should love him. Jesus is just as confusing, isn't he? By insisting that people like Mike Hughes are neighbors to be loved, he is just as exasperating. And the thing is, Jesus isn't just contradicting himself. He resembles sort of this character in a Jane Austen novel called Emma. Have you guys ever read or seen Emma? My kids love watching this with us because there's a scene in Emma in which Emma, who falls in love with Mr. Knightley, Mr. Knightley has gone to see his brother, and she's thinking of what his brother might say about her. And she says, "I love John." And then the next minute she says, "I hate John." And it seems like Jesus is kind of operating under that same scenario, right? He seems fickle. He doesn't seem to make any sense. But let's take this really slowly. Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brother and sister, yes, even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Well, okay then. Maybe for all these reasons, I don't want to be your disciple. But maybe I do. Maybe I do want to be your disciple, Jesus, because the alternatives seem bound to fail. For one thing, the suicide hotlines are burning up. And the primary reasons people give for not wanting to kill themselves is the horrible relationships they have with, you guessed it, father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters. Life itself often seems absurd with all the wrong people having all the wrong resources, able to shoot up rockets to determine if the world is flat or not. Dearest, wrote the famous author Virginia Woolf. Dearest, I don't think two people could have been happier till this terrible disease came. I can't fight any longer. I know that I'm spoiling your life, that without me you could work, and you will, I know. You see, I can't even write this properly. I can't read. What I want to say is I owe all the happiness of my life to you. You have been entirely patient with me and incredibly good. I want to say that. Everybody knows it. If anybody could have saved me, it would have been you. Everything has gone from me, but the certainty of your goodness. I can't go on spoiling your life any longer. I don't think two people could have been happier than we have. These were the last words that Virginia Woolf wrote before she walked into a river and drowned herself. She could feel almost everything, but she didn't think that two people could have been happier. And I think I know why. If you and I love because someone is a father, or because someone is a mother, or because someone is a spouse or a sibling, we may be in danger of confusing who they really are. I do need your attention right now. This is going to be hard stuff. If you love somebody simply because they're your father, they're your mother, they're your child, you're just treating them like their relationship with you is all that matters. Jesus encourages us to hate that reason for loving them. To hate that reason for loving them. Just because you're my wife, just because you're my husband, just because you're my mother and father, sibling, or child. Grandma Pyle, my grandmother, she lived this tough life during the Depression, and she raised 3 boys with whom she had this terribly strange relationship. It was hard to love Grandma Pyle because I didn't feel like she loved my father. I came along in 1964, and in 1981, my sociology professor said, I want you to do this family tree. I want you to interview people in your family and find out who they are, who you are. And so I went and I talked to Grandma Pyle, and there she is. All that I knew about Grandma Pyle was that she gave me $20 every Christmas, right? Thanks, Grandma. Thanks, Grandma. I love you, Grandma. But she had this photo album, and inside it were these pictures. And in between the pictures, there were poetry, and it was sexual poetry. And suddenly, I saw my grandmother not as this 85-year-old wrinkly crone of a curmudgeon woman, but I saw her as a 16-year-old person who wasn't my grandmother at all. And I could love her. There's a way we can love each other and not love each other for the reasons of the role-playing that we do in life. I'm not just your pastor. You're not just a member of this church. Do you hear me? You are the children of the living Lord. Amen.